Good morning. I am Bill Ilchi. In case you didn't know, I'm your council president. And we'd like to start with an opening prayer, and I would welcome you all to our Congregational Forum. Father, as we meet today, thank you for every seat that has been filled here. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of this room, we thank you. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, and our hopes. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning, every project, every season, every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. Your righteousness transcends all our efforts and understanding. Bless this meeting today, all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterward. Ready us to make every moment count. In Jesus' name, amen. I'd like to introduce Heather. She's our business manager.
Okay. Hi, for those who don't know me, I think I know most of you here. I am Heather Budnick. I'm our church business manager, and I am basically the paid employee who is here getting all of this done every day. And I am also here with Heather Obring, who is our council treasurer for the next couple years. So our agenda for today, we've had our opening prayer. We're going to give you a little financial report where things are right now, present our budget for the upcoming fiscal year 26-27, and Pastor Tim will talk to you a little bit about Sheltered in Grace, and then we'll have our closing prayer. Okay, and just to clarify time periods that we're talking about, because we always have a little confusion around this every year. As you know, a calendar year runs from January to December. Our church operates on a fiscal year, and that is because our programming year, as well as our preschool, operates on something closer to a school year. Our programming typically starts in August and ends in July, so that's why we use that period, August through July, as our fiscal year. So our current fiscal year, the 25-26 fiscal year, started in August 25, and it goes through July of 2026. So we have completed 8 months of our fiscal year right now. We need to approve our budget for the next fiscal year, 26-27, which starts in August of 26 and will go through July of 2027. So that's what we want to do here today. Our financial results for this year have been pretty good. We budgeted last year for our surplus to be about $11,400, which was what we needed to pay back our restricted funds. And our actual, as of 3/31/26, and again, that is 8 months into our fiscal year, we are currently sitting with a $52,570 surplus as of the year. And again, that is our annual surplus, not our cumulative surplus, but we're in the black all around, which is a very different place than where we were when we were talking to you this time last year. So we're very happy about that. We expect our annualized income to come in somewhere around a $30,000 surplus. We still have a few expenses and things going on, some things that we know are coming up, such as property projects, things like that, tend to cost a little bit more money and tend to be most easily done after we don't have a bunch of kids running around in preschool. So that stuff usually happens in the June and July timeframe. So overall, we're winding up a little over $19,000 better than what we expected this year. And we're just very happy about those results. Okay, a lot of that is because we have some offerings coming in. Note that we don't have final results from our Who is My Neighbor campaign, because that campaign began on May 18th of 2025. So we still have a month of giving left in that campaign. But where we are now for our commitments, our estimate based on past giving patterns, and our estimate based on recurring donations, we thought we were going to have about $837,201 this year. And with 1 month left in the campaign, we are already at $838,774. So we have already exceeded our estimate with a month left to go. And also very happy about that. A lot of that is what we think is driving our good results this year. We've had a lot of good consistent income coming in. Okay, so our current reality as of March 31st, again, this is a very different picture than what we presented to you last year. Our operating surplus for the year, that's 8 months into the fiscal year with 4 months remaining, is $52,570. Our cumulative surplus, which again, that is our total operating surplus over the whole life of the congregation. We are sitting at $26,251, also in the positive. We were negative on both of those numbers last year, so we're very grateful that we're back where we need to be. And as you know, a couple years ago, we had to borrow some cash from our restricted fund to pay our operating expenses. We borrowed a total of $45,000, and starting with this fiscal year, we are paying back $950 every month. We have been able to do that consistently, so our remaining balance to be paid is $37,400. We've paid $7,600 back to our restricted funds this fiscal year. Our current balance in our operating account is almost $103,000. We have paid some mission support to the Synod, which we did not budget this year, but our results were good enough that we felt that we could do that. So we paid $11,500 to the Synod, which is about 1.5% of our operating income. We might even be able to do a little more than that before the end of the fiscal year. We have also resumed the budget portion of the social ministry monthly emphasis. If you remember last year, that was one of the things that we felt we had to cut, something that kind of broke our hearts that we had to do it that way, but for a while there just was no money to do that, so we paused it. We still have our subscriptions to Christ in Our Home, and mileage reimbursements and cell phone reimbursements remain paused. Okay. I don't think there's anything below down there. You should be able to see everything here. This is where we are right now and what we would like our budget to be. If anybody would like a more detailed copy of the budget, we have some on paper back there. We're running more. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I never know how many to make. Some people like all those details, some just want the graphs, so it's just a guess, so thank you for taking care of that. So this graph on your left here is our annualized estimate for where we think we are going to be at the end of the year. That is basically our 8-month actuals, and then we rolled that forward as best we could to try to figure out where we think we will be at the end of this fiscal year. That's the number that we mostly use to come up with our budget. Makes sense to look at where we are now, what our results are for this year, and then we try to take that forward and into next year to come up with the funds that we think we're going to need. So our unrestricted income for this year, we're forecasting to be at $949,183, which is mostly offerings, $915,433. A little bit there in direct ministry supports, interest, 2 new things that we have here that we did not have at the time we did this this meeting last year. We are consistently receiving some mission support from Little Lamb Preschool. This is about 1% of the common costs that we share. So we look at things like our insurance costs, our mortgage costs, paper, use of the copier, and Little Lamb contributes a portion of the total of that, and that is currently sitting at 1% of what those costs are that we share with Little Lamb. So that's a new thing. They have committed to giving us that 1% every year. We also have a figure up there for grants, right there. About this time last year, we became aware of a grant opportunity from the Anderson Foundation, which is here in Valparaiso. One of our members is on the board there and told us about this opportunity. And we applied for a $20,000 grant to support our operating expenses, and we received that grant. So we got a nice little $20,000 boost, and we have also been invited to apply for that grant again this year, and our chances are pretty good at receiving it. This organization tends to, they encourage proposals from organizations that serve the youth in our community. So our active youth group and our preschool makes us a very good candidate for receiving those funds. So we anticipate that we are going to receive those again this year. So our unrestricted income for next year, we have estimated at $992,372. We expect our offerings to come in at $847,321. We have done, again, the same thing that we do every year. We look at the commitments that we get from our the statements of faith. Some people call them pledge cards, which we turn in. We consider that to be a pretty good number because people have consciously thought about what they want to give us and turned in that estimate of their giving. We also look at recurring giving from people who did not turn in a statement of intent. We also consider that to be a pretty solid number because even though those folks didn't turn in a statement of intent, they have an active recurring transaction set up. So, you know, we just kind of assume that if they're already set up and we don't know of anything going on, that they're going to continue giving as they have in the past. Another piece of that, another layer, is that we look at people who, for one reason or another, did not turn in a statement of intent and do not have a recurring transaction set up. And we take, it's a long process. I do look at every single person individually who does not do that. So if you turn in your statement of intent, you're helping me out. Gives me less work to do. But what we do look at every single person and look at their giving pattern over the last couple of years. And again, if there's nothing we know of that's going on with that person, we don't know that they're about to move away or something like that, we assume that they are going to continue their existing pattern and estimate that as best we can. Last year, we, you don't see it on this graph, but we did have a faith estimate of about $86,000. We thought we were going to be short. We just said, okay, brought it to the congregation. We look at our expenses and say, this is what we think we need to do to run this congregation. We think we're going to be a little short. Do we think we can meet this goal? And the congregation said yes, so we did take a little bit on faith, and it looks like we're going to be okay with that. This year we tried to be a little more clear about that. We expect our offerings to be at about $847,321, and we've also got our direct ministry support in there, which is things like covering our bank fees, money for worship supplies and altar flowers, stuff like that. Grants, a little bit in interest, our mission support from Little Lamb, and we have a little bit of a faith estimate. We would need about $114,792 to get us to where we meet our budget. Any questions on that?
Can I unpack that just a little bit as
course.
well? So what Heather's been describing is what we talk about in the office and with our council, with our staff and our leadership. How do you forecast the future for a church? especially how do we forecast the generosity of our members, friends, and folks who will be joining. And we seek to use as much data as we have, as conservatively as we can, so that we're not being wild and crazy with it. And so Heather talked about these 3 bands that we use for trying to predict. There is a 4th, and that's important too. So, and these bands, we think of them in terms of sort of level of predictability, right? How solid are they? The first, of course, is the statements of intent for those who have prayed over that and told us, and for their own sake have said, this is what we hope to do, and this is what we plan to do. Remember, those are always adjustable if life changes. It is not a contract, it is just an indication. Those are those most predictable. They have the most data for us. The second band that Heather talked about was folks who did not give a statement of intent but have a recurring gift. So if we just hope and pray that perhaps people will stick with that. What that does not take into account is maybe some people don't want to stick with that but actually jump in and increase that. That is not something that we take into account because we want to stay conservative with our forecasting. That's pretty dependable too because people have this pattern. The third, Heather's hard work, is folks who do not give a statement of intent, who do not have an online giving but have a pattern. Again, we conservatively assume that they will continue with that pattern, hope and pray, leaves open the possibility that they might get inspired by what we're doing, and that might be an increase also. And then there's the fourth that we absolutely cannot forecast at all. And the fourth is people who come and join, who are new members, who are excited, who are from the community, who jump in and maybe have come with us on a trip or an activity and on a Sunday and say, boy, here is something to support what you're doing. This comes in at random times. It is about our new members, but also our guests and our visitors, and the folks who do not have that sort of pattern. We have no data for it. And so we do not include that in this forecast. But to be clear, when we say offerings expected here, this is not the full story. That is the predictable first 3 bands. It is leaving off the one that we cannot predict. And that cannot predict one is what made the difference between last year's predicted, forecasted income, which was much less than that by almost $100,000. It's what made the difference there, and we always anticipate that it will. That is what Heather means by the faith estimate here, right? Here are the ones, the folks that we feel like we have some data for. The remaining of it is what we hope and pray and take on faith that God will do this, right? So when we say our predicted offerings are 847, we could also say the predictable, right? It's not the full story. It is us trying to be as transparent and conservative in our forecast as we possibly can.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments on this? Oh, yes. Sorry, yes. I believe we're live streaming, so.
We are, and just people in the room. If you're using one, probably questioner should too. So I grasped that it was complicated, but I guess I'm still confused. I can't tell if we're forecasting that offerings are going to be down or not.
Thank you. Okay. We are saying with this one, offerings, 847, 321 is what we can predict. There is always an element in there that we can't predict. This 847, 321 is just that number that we can predict, the folks we know. We're going to get new members. We're going to get loose offerings. We're going to get stuff that we can't predict. The 915, 433 number that you see on our annualized estimate includes that number. This one does not, because there's just no way. We have no data to predict that. That's just what we think we're going to need to meet our expenses.
Do you have a comparable number from last year? You know, what was the 847 last year?
I do. Do we have it from, yeah. It probably is. Okay. Yep, there we go. 837,201 is where we thought we would be last year. Yeah. Whoops, wrong way. Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
What accounts for the change in the direct ministry support from this year to next year?
Yeah, so direct ministry support is basically things like covering bank fees, covering worship supplies, stuff like that. Yeah, building use. Honestly, I think some of that comes from property. Property does not like to put building usage fees into their budget because they feel like they're kind of being tied to that if it's in there, is my understanding of that. So there are no estimates in our budget for building usage fees, what we get in for the coffering, things like that. If we get that stuff, wonderful, we have a little extra money. So that actual number includes all of those building usage fees, coffering amounts, things like that that came in. The budget does not. Any other questions? Yes.
Just a couple clarifications. One was you mentioned about the synod. At one point, you say 1.5%. We've been a congregation for many years in the past with being one of the largest giving to our synod at, I believe, a tithe of our regular budget. And we've had to decrease that in the last year or so. So you might have said it, but what would be the budget estimate for this next year? Can we increase from the 1.5? And also we've had a goal of trying to give increase to our staff, and I don't know if that is in there at all or whether we will not be able to do that based on the estimates. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're looking at up here is the income. The next slide is going to have our expenses on it. So we'll get there as soon as we're done with any other questions. Okay, can I move on?
I'll just say a quick aside as she
Yeah.
moves on. I know of some churches and some leadership, I'm sorry, go back one more, who would make this easy by saying, well, this is what we need and God will make it happen, right? That would be great. That would be so much easier. We don't feel like that's being fully transparent. We want to make sure you know how we are stewarding your generosity and your gifts. So we do this the harder way. It would be lovely to be able to do that and just say, well, of course it's a balanced budget because God will provide. We want to make sure you know where we are and what we're doing. Oh, it would be so nice to be.
It would be. There were times in the past that we did do that. Okay, now moving forward with expenses. Again, this is our annualized estimate for the current fiscal year that we are on, and this is our proposed fiscal year budget for 26-27. You might not be able to see this down here. We're kind of got covered up there, but it does include a salary increase of 3% for our staff. And it does include, and it's not spelled out on this side, it's in the details. It does include mission support at about 3% for the synod. So we're slowly getting back to where we need to be, but still having to leave a little cushion for paying ourselves back and getting our restricted funds back where they need to be as well. We anticipate that our operating expenses for this year will come in right around 930,061. Operating expenses for next year, with those salary increases, we think will be 992,372. Any questions? Yes.
Heather, on the sheet that we got, where the 3% increase is indicated, the total expenses, it says 980,973, which is 12,000 different, sort of. So I'm wondering, is that here? And I'm wondering, is that a different number than this number that you have here?
Yeah, that just the 992 number includes the payback to the restricted funds of 11.4. Yep, that's comes out of a slightly different pocket.
And so it's registered on there in a different line than we expected to be.
Yeah. We wanted to put it on here because it's also something that we're going to need some cash for. If we don't have the cash, we can't pay it back.
Yeah. Kyle over here.
Can I hand you this so
Sure.
I don't trip over the cord?
Does the new budget include mileage and cell phone? Does that get back in there? Is there room for that?
If you make it have room, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, this is your budget, right? And everything that we forecast is really about what we are doing together. So, of course, it can if we make it so. Heather, do you have another slide that talks about some of the differences, like for property and so forth, that make up the 60,000?
Not specifically.
Okay, then can I talk to that just for a second?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So $60,000 difference, right, is striking, and we should ask about that. And that is made up, the salary increase that we're talking about, if you sort of track that across, comes out to be, for all our staff at 3%, about $10,000, right? On $1 million budget, that's, what is that, 1%, something like that. So that's about $10,000 of it. There are some other places that grew in worship and music, for example. The biggest impact is always in property, because this is a big building. Where's our masked man? Greg, how many HVAC units do we have in this building? 27 HVAC units. So let me repeat that, because we're going to need you to have a microphone. We'll talk. This comes up again later, so it's okay. Let me just summarize for now. We have 5 HVAC units that are on our forecast and on our long-term planning to replace because they wear out. You know what has been happening with the cost of materials and things like that. You also know what's been happening with our utilities. Isn't that fun? That hits us also. And so the great majority of that difference is in the long-range planning, the scheduled replacement and upkeep, utilities, and things like that.
2 other things that I would add to that is that we do have in our budget a full year of our youth director this year. I don't remember what we had in there last year, but our operating expenses for this year did not include about 4 months of a youth director salary, because Karina came and joined us in January. We also had our mortgage increase. Our 5-year rate reset took us from $14,685 a month to $16,531, I believe. So, that is in there as well. 10 years left in the mortgage. Just about 1.5 million. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you more than that, but it's pretty close to that. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Just curious, do you know what is the total in restricted funds?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but we can look it up here.
Other questions as she's looking that up? Adam?
I'm not sure what else you've got in your slide deck, but in the hall here, there's a chunk of roof and some shingles and stuff. Are we talking about that next, or?
Yes, we will be. Okay, I don't have my glasses on. Can I just hand you the mic real quick?
The CLC side is 101,142 at the end of March.
And that does not include, right, that does not include our Steiner Fund, which is around $20,000, and our endowment, which I believe is around 170-ish? 172. Wow. Any other questions? Okay, I will move on. Okay, again, these are just a couple more graphs. This is our income graph, just showing this year right next to what we're budgeting for our coming year. Again, this is just expenses. And this is, or sorry, that was income, this is expenses. Any questions on those? Same information, different graph. Okay, yeah. You might remember these from last year, our stair steps. We are starting to get back on track. We have given a little bit to our synod. We're at about 1.5% right now. We're hoping we'll feel comfortable remitting a little bit more by the end of the year. So hopefully we're at that step one. We're not quite at 946 that we're projecting, but we think we have enough cash to be able to give some to the synod. And we're also, we felt it was close enough to give the staff a salary increase. It's been a couple of years since we've been able to do that. Yes? Yes. 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 The question was, when we say give more to the synod, we're talking about this fiscal year as opposed to next fiscal year. And yes, we are hoping to give a little bit more this fiscal year. Any more questions? All right. Pastor Tim, what's up with the roof?
Hey, the beautiful handoff there, asking about the chunk of, that wasn't that Adam? I'm going to bring our masked man up because to help me as part of this too. You've noticed that chunk of roofing stuff out there, and that is a display that our property team put together for us to understand the roof that is above our heads. It is a different type of construction than our homes. In our homes, we have those attics, and we have, the rafters, and you put insulation in there. These are made without the rafters so that it can span the far distance between these big beams, right? Our property team does an excellent job led by Mylan in this, of keeping track of this building, of knowing where everything is and when we've replaced it, what the likely lifetime of it is. We have a long-range plan that gets included in our regular budget. So we have 5 HVAC units that will be replaced this year because it is time. No?
No.
Whatever he said then.
One per year for the
One
next
per
5
year for the
years.
next 5. Oh, good.
They're about $35,000 per unit, so
Yeah.
you can't do it all at once.
Right. So we stagger this out. We have a long-range plan, and that's what allows us to have this building that we offer for ourselves and for our community. That careful stewarding and keeping track of the roofing that we have around this building has led our property team to notice something going on above our heads. And Greg's going to describe that for us, and then we will describe what we've learned and what we're planning, and then next week we will have the rest of the details on that. So this is one of those teaser trailers to help you understand what's coming and what we're doing, and then next week we'll have the full plan for you.
We got to this point by noticing that there was an awful lot of the granules that are in the gutters and out the downspouts. So we started examining the roof more carefully and noticed that, this was a year or so ago, that there's much of the roof that was down to pretty much the fiberglass mat that's in the shingles. The shingles were pretty much worn out. We sought a warranty remedy from the manufacturers, and we received that. Unfortunately, a warranty is depreciated over the life of the time that the roof has been on there. We got $3,000. The roof now, to re-roof it, costs just over $100,000. So we need to raise some additional funding, and that's what Pastor's going to talk more about next week as the funding mechanism. The roofing reason we need to do this before it leaks is the design of the roof is called a structurally insulated panel. You don't have rafters, you don't have attic spaces. Everything below the roof, above those panels that are in here, those are a decorative suspended ceiling, basically. Above that, everything in between that, everything down below the main roof is conditioned air. You don't have attic space, you don't have ventilation. The roof panels themselves, we have a display out there, are laminated plywood, basically OSB type wood, on either side of a vacuum sealed styrofoam core, and that makes it structurally strong without rafters. If the water were to leak through the shingles and deteriorate one of those exterior sheets, you wouldn't just be able to replace a sheet of plywood under your shingles because it's all laminated together. You'd have to replace a whole great big huge section of this, which would be very cost prohibitive. So in finding this early, we thought we did a good thing, got estimates and so forth, and had an infrared scan done of the roof to determine whether roofers thought we actually had wet material, and we do not. That's a good thing, catching this before we have any rotting. So we plan to have the roof of everything that was built 16 years ago. All of the shingled portions need to be redone. The flat roofs are fine for another probably 15 years or so. So all of that we plan to have re-roofed. We've got proposals on that. We've got a couple of proposals. And I think we've got good contractors too. So Pastor, I know we'll talk more about the program for raising the funds for that.
Yeah. So we have a plan, and the plan will be, like Jeff asked, we kind of are tired of this mortgage and would like to make a difference in that. And so together, we think it makes sense to both be able to address this roof. It's been fun to hear property talk about, if we don't fix this, that falls in. There's no drip. It falls in. because it's all structural. So we definitely want to get there before we get the damage coming. But we also would like to reduce that mortgage payment that we have, and we have learned with that rate reset that Heather said, that we can request, if we make a difference in our principal on the mortgage, we can request a re-amortization of that then can reduce our monthly payments. And it's within reach. And so we are bringing to you, council, property, our leadership is bringing to you the idea, let's do them both, right? It's all about our building, and it's also about freeing ourselves from a roof falling on us, but also a mortgage payment that went up on us through no fault of our own. So that chunk of roofing out there, as Adam said, is there so we can understand. Please do stop by and check those shingles out, it is visibly noticeable how thin they've gotten. Now, it is not leaking yet. There's still an overlap, but it sure isn't the way you want your house shingles to look. And it is also important to note that this came at us out of our long-range planning because these shingles are 16 years old. We expected 25 to 30. The manufacturer, in giving us a warranty claim, has it tacitly admitted there was a bad batch. So we are using different types, we are planning differently, we're bringing this as something that we need to do and that we can do together. Yes, there are warranties. I believe this previous batch of shingles was warranted for 30 years, right? The one we're looking at replacing it with is warranted for 40 years, but you won't get your 30 years, but we sure didn't expect to get 16. We expected to have more like 20 to 25 on our long-range plan. And so we want to do it with the upgraded level of shingles, right? A different manufacturer, and we want to make sure that it's done so that this, we don't have to do this again in another 16 years. And so that's part of the planning and part of the things that property is talking about. If it was a bad batch, why only $3,000? We would love to know the answer to that.
It's just typically the way a warranty is set up. It's depreciated with the cost associated with when they were bought and put on over the life that they have spent on your roof. And it's depreciated a certain percent each year. And, that's why you end up with so little at the end of the warranty. Yes, we sought a warranty remedy, and we got it. The claim was honored, which, like Pastor said, I believe means that the manufacturer admits that they didn't live up to what was expected. So, but that's the best you're going to get out of a warranty.
Yeah. And again, it's cost at installation, not current price of petroleum products in our world today. Question was, what do the mission builders have to say about this? I do not know the answer to that. I am not sure.
There was a lot more than mission builders that were involved in this. Our church participated. In fact, our property manager at that time was the general contractor for that. And so he's very well acquainted with what's up there and how it was done. And it was done right. It was done the best it could have been at the time. And, it just unfortunately just happened this way. So now we have to take care of it.
Back there, Greg?
If we add this to our mortgage, what does that do to the repayment schedule? Does it add another year or two or what?
So if the question was, if we were to add this to our mortgage, like do home, what we can do in our homes, like a home equity loan type thing, right? That is not what we're talking about. We are talking about a plan for us to have the money in hand and pay for this, plus bring our mortgage down as a way to make a difference on our operating expenses. Does everyone know what mission builders are? Sue, would you describe that for us? We're going to give you the microphone.
Mission Builders are a group of mostly retired, mostly Lutherans who live mostly in RVs. We had, I don't know if we had any here. Mylan was our chair locally of Mission Builders. We had several who worked and who volunteered. My ex-husband Tom and I were Mission Builders in several places all over the country. It was a wonderfully fulfilling kind of a job to do. We camped in our RVs here on the parking lot, and we built this sanctuary. We built the sanctuary with a lot of volunteer help from the congregation. The rest of the church was already built, but we built the sanctuary and the gathering space. Yeah. It was wonderful.
This could be fun. This could be fun. If you worked alongside the Mission Builders and helped put this place up, would you raise your hand?
Yeah. Questions? Other questions? Okay, yes.
How many members do we have in this congregation? Is always a good question, and it's one that has a bunch of different answers depending on how you feel like defining that. One way we can answer that is how many people are in our database, right? That we've not removed due to inactivity, moving, and stuff like that. And that's around 1,200. That is a nonsense number. It means nothing. The better number is how many people are actively participating in the life of the congregation. Probably our best estimate of that is to answer it in two different ways. One is, what is our average weekly attendance in church, with us on a Sunday? We are running, and Tony has these exact figures. He tracks all of this. We're running a little bit below 300. Here's a piece you don't know. 20 to 30% of our weekly attendance is online every week. Let me say that again. 20 to 30% of our weekly attendance is online on Sunday and during the week. And we have, Tony tracks all of this for us, does a great job with, the formulas that the ELCA recommends, and then we don't like theirs, so we have our own that we think makes more sense. And that is one way to answer that. Another way to answer would be how many family units or what we would call giving units are participating in supporting the life of the church. And Heather's going to tell us right now exactly how many there are. Approximately.
I would ballpark it at about 220.
About 220. So that's family units, right, of whatever size, that are active enough in the life of the church to be participating in supporting the church. How you put all of that together and how you answer that question, which is a good question, is one, it depends on what you're looking for. So I know that this was, we've left a lot of things off here on this part, right? You are anxious to know how can we do this and what is the plan and stuff like that. And I am sorry that we don't have Mylan here today. We want to make sure that we introduce this to you next week with all of those details, which will include, Pastor, how on earth can we do this in the middle of all this stuff? Well, we can. And next week, we're going to roll that out and let you know. I will give you a sneak peek. We do not start from scratch, but if our goal to put the roof back on, we are approaching almost half of that already funded. So we're going to tell you how this works and what the difference can be in terms of our operating expenses if we can adjust that mortgage. So this is something we absolutely can do. There is no question. And there's something that we absolutely have to do. I mean, I do not want to see this entire section squashed while I'm preaching from here. No, thank you. It's way too much paperwork. So it is something that we've caught in time. We have the opportunity. We can also make a difference in that pesky mortgage, and it winds up helping us down the road entirely. We can and will do this, and we're going to get you the rest of those details so that you can know about it next week, okay? And I know that's not fair. Teaser trailers are never fair, right? But just to know that this is coming, there's more to it, and that we are already on this path that will get us there. Jim?
Would there be a difference in how much interest the interest rate would be after